Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Natsu Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about One Punch Man Season 2, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in the aftermath of one of the, higher ranking kind of, what were they, associate, I forgot what the titling is, but one of the officials that is kind of at the top of the Hero Association. After he got attacked last episode, now the association, they're taking Garo a little more seriously, even though Sitch tried to warn them. But it's we'll have the heroes. But it's one thing when he's going after heroes, and you're like, well, the big heroes haven't going after him, so that's fine, whatever. But now they're on high alert because one of them got attacked, and they're like, oh, if he's going after one of them now, all of us need to basically move a little differently. We need to have at least an S-class hero with us at all time as a bodyguard. But it's to be fair, Garo never intentionally went after. He's not going after people at those levels, though, because going after them is nothing. His point is to take down all these heroes to prove himself. But he only went after that guy because that guy was running his mouth off about he can take those girls to see my mask, and it's well, if you know what my is, I'm trying to get that information out of you. So, and because we saw he actually turns out to have a hit list. So that was something I was like, are you just flying by the seat of your pants? It's well, he probably doesn't. He doesn't know the easiest way to track them down except for looking at the guidebook with that little kid and learning their habits and stuff like that, because so much of their information is so publicly known in those books and stuff. But outside of that, we saw he does actually have a list because he struck off Golden Ball from it this episode. So he does have a target list. So it isn't completely random, but it's just how he goes about picking his targets seem to be random, even though he does have an actual target list. So I have to kind of correct myself from last episode thinking he's kind of like freestyling the situation, but there is some method to his madness, even if it is still chaotic madness and whatever the case may be. But yeah, because if he wanted the information, probably going after those higher ups in the Hero Association, not the heroes themselves, but the kind of council or whatever of officials that rank at the top. It's probably going after them would probably be the easiest way, but he's not thinking about that because I even said even though he's trying to be a monster, he's not attacking people. He's letting that kid go. He's not attacking random citizens because even though that's what monsters would do, he's, so that's why I was he's not the monster he claims himself to be. Also, he's not killing these heroes. These monsters would approach and are trying to kill these heroes they're fighting. So there's a vast difference. Which, speaking on that, I think I talked about it last episode, trying to understand his motivations. Was he not cut out to be a hero? I was no. As a kid, he always chose the monster side because he hated the hero winning because he's coming from the perspective of kind of no one's ever he views the monsters as an underdog. It's the hero's the one that always wins. No one ever considers the monsters' feeling of maybe they want to win. They have their goals and aspirations. He always sided with the monsters because he always felt like they were the underdogs. Because as the villains, you're always meant to lose. The hero is always meant to come out on top. And he's always, and I guess maybe as someone who always fell short, he just felt more in line with the monsters than he did the hero, and that's what motivated. It seems like he's had that motivation ever since he was a kid. It's not something that started when he was training with Bong. It's more specifically that helped him. In fact, training with Bong is where he felt I have nothing else to learn, and that's why he kind of went off on his own. We kind of get into that this episode, but he's always felt that way, and that's been his main motivation to do all this, to prove his way of thinking and his way of feeling and his perspective to be right. What's also interesting, though, is when he wakes up after the events of last episode, he's I don't remember what happened. So Saitama must have really rocked your head. I mean, I'm sure it's also the fact is well, he did go into fight after fight after fight, especially because he was fighting those two, Mustachio and Golden Ball. So he ended up was in a slightly weakened state. Doesn't change the fact that Saitama whooped his ass pretty instantly, but he doesn't even remember that. Because I thought when he got the guidebook, he's well, let me track down the Saitama guy. But it's no, I guess his mind is trying to protect him, where it's you are so sure of yourself, that you're so strong that you can't even fathom someone defeating you in a single blow. So his mind is trying to protect his ego in that regard. obviously tying this back to the whole S-Class Heroes thing, we have Metal Bat where he's being forced to defend one of the associates. This guy's at a sushi bar with his son, and it's like, oh, let me show my son what it's like to eat like the commoners, and they help. I guess it makes sense from certain etiquette standpoints. I've never ate at like a sushi bar, so I never knew like the etiquette of like, no, you keep your plate as a representation of like, that way they have a better idea of like how to total up your food, you know, like how much you, it's like, okay, so the plates is kind of showing like how much food you had. I've never thought about that. Like I said, I've thought about another thing. I stopped eating fish food like over a decade ago. Seafood. So, and I've never eaten sushi, but whatever the case may be, I've never been to a place like that thinking about it, because I just think about like the flat fee of what a buffet is. So I just thought it'd be like that. But yeah, I think from one side, I'm like, oh, I get the etiquette of like, oh, putting your plate back up there, but it's also like, that's also where they serve. Maybe it varies from place to place or something like that, or maybe even country to country. But I just thought that was interesting. But, he kept getting irritated because it's that gap between, because they also look at it and they say, oh, look at this, ain't this place quaint. They're coming at it from a rich standpoint, so they come off like entitled assholes. And Metal Bat doesn't like having, I mean, for one, he assumed this was a very like high level mission, and here I am, executive is the word I was looking for earlier. He's got to protect these executives, and it's just like, next time I get a job from an executive, I'm not taking it. He's like, I thought this was an important mission, but here I am babysitting them as they're stuffing their face, looking down on anyone that's common, and yada, 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 looking at it as quaint and not just like, oh, this is day-to-day life for people. And it's like, oh, you get to like take a quick little field trip in what it means to be quote unquote common. So that's the whole deal of it all. And so we also learn about Metal Bat. He has a sister that it's like, oh, don't cry. I'll go shopping with you after I'm doing this job. He's like, something came up last minute. For real? He told her where he was at. But he's like, no, I'm telling you, I'm here with a job. It's like, you probably shouldn't have told her where you were at, because now she's thinking you're goofing off. Which I'm also kind of like, ooh, that feels like that might be a storyline where you're like, right, we meet your sister later on because she's coming to visit you in a hospital. But I'll get to that later. That's a potentiality. I'm curious, does he not have, like, do they not have parents? Is he the only person in his sister's life? It feels like it could be set up for that type of storyline. We'll see. But suddenly they get attacked. It's not Garo, even though I think at this point, no, Garo doesn't find out Metal Bat where he is until, like, the alarms go off, the announcement goes off about, like, the enemies that are charging and, like, the enemies that show up. So he defeats the initial enemies that show up. And what is interesting, though, is they are looking for the executive. So you're like, interesting. Even though Garo isn't exclusively doing that. Because at first you're almost like, wait, are they serving Garo? Especially when they were like, oh, like, I used to think I was tough until someone else, like, kind of, like came up through the hierarchy. At first I was like, oh, is that Garo? But then an even stronger, like, centipede-esque monster showed up. I was like, oh, you're talking about that. So I was like, oh, so the Garo thing is completely unrelated. But I guess it does tie into, like, there's the conversations about stronger monsters have been popping up and more frequently. And the amount of heroes, especially, like, the higher level heroes, there's so few, they're not enough to kind of go out. Especially in the aftermath of, like, it was already heading in that direction last season. But especially with, like, the old lady's, the fortune teller, like, her prophecy about the 6-month thing and something, like, very, like, a god-level threat making its way here. And, like I said, the more pop-up frequency of the monsters and the stronger monsters, obviously it, like, coincides with, like, another property to make the parallel to. It's like the kaiju number 8 thing. It's like they've been stronger kaijus and they've been popping it more frequently, and we see that that's part of a larger pattern that someone's kind of orchestrating that whole thing. I wonder if the same thing's here. So I mean, we do constantly see that, like, oh, certain monsters finally pop up because other monsters are no longer around. It's like, oh, this monster was keeping me from doing my thing. Like, there's that giant thing from last season. It's like, oh, there was some monster along with the Deep Sea King. Now they've been removed from the equation. Now I feel comfortable, like, stepping out into the fray. So there might be a little bit of that going on as well. Like, but to the point to have the information that you do must mean that some must be some smart intellectual monster like puppeteering everything for the background, and even Garo might not even realize he's just a chess piece on someone else's board, even though he's thinking like, I'm free will, I'm doing my own thing. I'm the human turned monster, not realizing that maybe there's a monster turned human who's thinking and operating more like a human, or maybe there is a human amongst the humans who's turning and siding with the monsters aside from Garo. I don't know. Because that was something an answer Metal Bat never got this episode was, wait, I forgot to get the information of why they're targeting executives. Because the first two he beats pretty easily, but then two more show up. It's a giant centipede monster that's kind of like those smaller monsters, Senpai. And then there's also like this plant one that's spewing out like this sleeping gas, essentially. And Metal Bat was kind of holding his own to some extent, but he kept getting pushed back. But then he had to pump himself up. It's kind of interesting. Like, there is a parallel between him and Saitama, except the difference is he has like a bat. But like, there's not like super powered about him. It's like, oh, what's his killer move? It's him swinging his bat really hard, really fast. That's all there is to it. So he had to smack himself in the head. It's like, all right, I got to get to this fight. And then he, in one single blow each, he kills the plant monster and the centipede one. But then another one pops up, which we saw at the Hero Association. Two of the people were talking about like, oh, something similar happened 2 years ago. Hopefully that doesn't show up, and ended up being the dragon level threat, which even his bat couldn't get through. But he realized, yo, this thing didn't want me to hit its like major like old man face. So he aims for it, but who knows if that, it probably did some damage, but not enough to like properly take it down. And so he gets flung back, and Garo shows up just for the fight because he's like, oh, you're an S-class hero, how fortuitous. Because at first he was like, oh, he thought Metal Bat was killed by this guy, and it's like, well, so only monster you're supposed to fall to is me. But he sees, oh, you're alive? Cool, you're here right in front of me? Might as well like duke it out. So this kind of lends itself to what I was bringing up earlier. I think he's going to end up in a hospital, Metal Bat. He's going to lose this fight. Like, either it's because he's going to be torn between fighting Garo, trying to shut him down, but also protecting the city from this threat. So he's probably, his focus isn't going to be on the fight, really. And Garo is injured. Granted, I don't think he's given himself enough time, because we see like even his leg from the and I think his hand from the Mustachio and Golden Ball fight. Like, he's still wounded, and those wounds are treated, but still. So, because he's not giving himself enough time to recover, because he's running a gauntlet, essentially. Even though there's some time in between, just not enough to fully heal. I mean, hell, he still even has like the cut on his face showing like, it's not like he's got rapid healing or anything. So we'll see how that goes for him going forward. The other side of the episode involves Saitama showing up, pretending to be Chiranko for the tournament. And it's like, oh, you have to put down your fighting style. He's like, fighting style? And he kind of freestyles what he remembers some of the, Bong's fighting style, but misses the mark. And ends up running into one of Bong's other students, former student, Sourface. And he knows Chiranko, which, Saitama's like, crap. I wasn't expecting to actually run into someone who knew me here, or at least knew Chiranko. But this guy, Sourface, is running his mouth off about how Chiranko is now like, oh, you're his master, his head disciple, but it's because you're the only one left. Because everyone else bailed, either got heavily injured and is out, or either just straight up quit after Garo did what he did. He just, one day during training, snapped and was like, all right, I'm done. Let's get into a real fight. And then he bashed everyone. And then we heard Bong kind of took care of him, and he's kind of been going ever since, I guess, going off to refine his skills to get stronger. Like, because they're kind of implying like that was only, because I brought that up maybe last season or maybe earlier this season about, we have no idea how long ago that was. I might have been earlier this season I brought up like how long ago that was. Seems like based on Sourface's time frame, he's thinking like, that he says like this all went down like 6 months ago, him turning on the school and everything. So, but Sourface was running his mouth off about how he believes like the only reason, like, he's like, I quit because I thought, what's his face was Garo was still going to be around. It's like, Chiranko, the only reason why you're still like, you're the top student. He's like, if I was still around, obviously I'd be the choice. But then Saitama calls him out by being like, well, no, like, you could say all that you want to say, but at the very least, Chiranko did fight Garo. And that's something Sourface did, but like after he lost, what did he do? He ran away. Chironko knew what kind of monster Garo was and still made the choice. He saw him ripping through all those other heroes and still made the choice to try and fight him last episode. Even if he thought he was outclassed, he was willing to do that just for the sake of his master, to bring him some clarity and, you know, bring him some closure rather than clarity, more closure than anything. And it's like, Chironko, despite everything, stayed. But what did you do? You ran. So you can't really say anything when you quit. To just besmirch Chironko saying like he's weaker. So what if he is? He still has more pride and courage in him to stick around while you and so many others ran. You know? And Chironko's like, well, we get to the finals. Like, if you manage to get there, I'll show you a real battle, which only Saitama's takeaway was real battle. It's like, I haven't had one of those in forever, which is kind of sad because even the fight against Boro, he didn't count it as one, which even Boro himself before dying was like, yeah, like, this wasn't a tough fight for you. I gave it my all, and it still wasn't enough to really give you a real challenge. But that shows you who Saitama is, because he wasn't going to sit there and let this guy besmirch Chironko's mind, because he does have respect for heroes, like people who are like, because he also comes from that underdog background of like, yeah, I was an underdog and I trained and I worked my butt off. It's like, don't besmirch people who try and work hard and train hard to get, you know, don't ever like discredit hard work. He looks down on people who look down upon those. So of course, you know, couldn't even get Chironko's name right last episode, but it makes sense you get it right this time, considering like you're pretending to be him, which that's a whole issue within itself, because Sourface was like, he brings up like, what was it, last year there was someone in a Wolfman costume or mask or whatever who fought in the tournament and won, but it turns out the real Wolfman was unconscious. He believes it was Garo that entered it, because he was like, that would have been around the time after he left their master's like side or whatever. But I'm like, would Garo have really gone through that trouble? Like, why the mask and stuff? So I was actually wondering if it's going to be like, is it going to be Bong or his brother that entered? I'm curious. Not unless it's the actual champion, Sirio, that just wanted to do it without all the attention, because it seems very recognizable. So I'm wondering, it feels like that's probably going to be a reveal. Like, it doesn't seem like that'd be Garo's style to do it, because he's very like out there open. Like, if it was him, he would have made a point to do it. He would have never, why would he go through the trouble wearing a mask? It would have put him on center stage, would have gotten him a lot more notice. So I don't think it was him. I think it was someone else, and I'm curious to see what that reveal is going to be. But yeah, also Saitama's sweating bullets, worried that this whole thing is going to go a kablooey in his face, which is funny considering we're cutting back to the Chironko being like, there's no way Saitama would do it. He's not that stupid. It's like, well, actually, Saitama is stupid. Then Moomin Rider's, oh, you know Saitama? He's like, oh, yeah. It's like, don't worry. Like, Saitama, he's a hero. Even if he falls, he'll get back up and he'll stand back up. But also, Moomin Rider's like, yeah, but also Saitama's a hero. He would never do something illegal like you know, fraudly pretend to be someone else to enter a tournament like that. And ironically, here's Saitama doing that. Because, yeah, he's a hero in some capacities, but he's also like, and you know, gray area at the very least. So it's like, it's so interesting that it's like Saitama has like at least a more light than dark, but he definitely, his gray area leans more light than dark, but still it's kind of like, you still are willing to kind of cut some corners and do some like shady stuff if it just, you know, it's more so about you, because he's like, oh, like there must be some very strong people here. So it's like, I thought like he'd find it interesting being able to try and practice martial arts, because he has no proper technique to his fighting. So I thought that was his takeaway from it. It's like, oh, here's a lane of superpowered people I never thought about, because I was like, right, there are people who stick in their lane of like, right, I'm not a martial artist, so this is a world I'm an outsider to. So I've only just fought strong people I've been around or heard about, not thinking like, oh, there's a different lane of strong people. I'm outside that world of martial arts, so it never even like entered my like thought. So that's what this is, just finding strong opponents. So, which, you know, that's at the forefront of a lot of what Saitama does, while also just at the forefront just being a hero trying to do the right thing. So he can be simple-minded yet complex in the most simple-minded type of way. So yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy that Saitama has, you know. But like I said, even if he is gray area, he still leans more good on the more slightly neutral side rather than leaning more on the darker sides of gray, leaning more towards the dark side or anything, so. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.